Hey, it's Don. Welcome to Don't Worry, I'm Finite, the podcast. This week I'm going to talk about TikTok ending because, as far as I know, there's nothing else going on in the news this week, right? So that's going to be the topic of conversation today, and I'm going to get into some other things as well. But first, I want to point everybody to my Substack. It's at don'tworryimfinite.substack.com. Every week I'm going to be posting an article about something creative, something I'm thinking about. I've been getting into the idea of just saying yes and some of the topics we cover on the podcast, but I go a little deeper into those topics on my Substack page. So please check it out. It also will link to all of my other socials and my YouTube videos and podcasts. So if you want to follow one source to find all of my info weekly, go over to Substack. And when it asks you to subscribe, please subscribe. All you'll do is get an email every week. You can scan over what it is, and if you just want to go down to the links, you can do that as well. Thanks in advance. So let's just get right into this. All right, we're back for another solo episode. It's just me here, so you get to listen to my wonderful voice. And we're talking about the thing that everyone is talking about this week. Your Instagram and Facebook feeds are probably all filled with the same picture from everyone, which is a screenshot of that image that TikTok is banned in the US. It's true. It really happened. I know everybody was talking about it for quite a while. I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to it, but I knew it was happening. I wasn't totally sure it was really going to happen, but then everybody's posting their pictures that there's a law banning TikTok in the US. Unfortunately, that means you can't use TikTok right now. They're fortunate that the new president has indicated that he will work on a solution to reinstate it. What do we all think about that? Do we think that's going to happen? Do we think it's a good thing? Do we think it's a bad thing? I've seen I've seen some people say ban TikTok, go government, ban the Chinese app. And then I've seen people say this is pure fascism. And I mean, that kind of is it kind of is what you come to expect on the internet. You get the polarity of full end of the spectrum. You don't find a lot of measured in the middle content. Basically, I don't really want to talk about the politics or the fascism of this plan. I really only want to talk about the effects this will have on art. So that's what I plan on chatting about today. Just to get it out there, though, I feel that there might be a little bit of overreach in the banning of an app that is a tool of free expression, and I want to get into that free expression and how we're going to continue to express ourselves without one of the most popular sharing apps that we have at our disposal right now. So I never got into TikTok quite as much. I think once TikTok came around, when it started at least, it didn't seem like something that would really be for me. Though, of course, it did, like many things, like many social media apps, it did morph into something different. So it became less of a lip syncing and dancing app, and it became more of a full on artistic expression app. And I think that was great. So I just had too many other projects and things going on, and I had too many other social media apps to keep up with already. I wasn't ready to abandon those and jump on another, but I also didn't really have the mental bandwidth to add another one to my plate. So I wasn't going to replace one with TikTok, and I felt like Instagram was kind of giving me what I needed in that space. We already had Instagram Reels, we had Instagram Stories, and I could share my photos and videos on Instagram. So I didn't really need another place to put my art. However, like everything that moves so quickly, you have a tool at your disposal that millions of people are looking at. You want to take advantage of that. So I tried to get myself into it. I tried to find ways to fit what the algorithm wanted over there. I was having mild success, but I think that measuring success on platforms like TikTok is very difficult because you find that you get, 1,000 views, 2,000 views. But what does that really mean? Does that mean that those people actually interacted with your content? Does that mean they saw it and they swiped by? That means somebody saw it and they said, no, thank you. Uh, or did they click through your profile and did they say, I'm going to click on your links and maybe I'm going to go buy your artwork. Maybe I'm going to follow you on other platforms. It's really hard to quantify success when it comes to these programs. And I think right now we're really going to see the effects of how people were making money, how people were marketing themselves on TikTok. And maybe this is kind of the opposite of when TikTok came on the scene and I felt I didn't have the bandwidth to move onto another app or add another app to my repertoire. But I have now one less place that I can put things. And some people whose almost their entire platform was TikTok, they're going to need to find another place that they can express themselves. And I think that's going to be a big part of the conversation in the next few weeks, months, however long this takes to get resolved, if it gets resolved. But finding a way to get your work out there has always been a challenge. When I was first getting into photography and art, it was all about having a physical space to showcase your art. So I would have cafes and places that hung art in local spaces put my photos up, and they would put them up on consignment. Basically, they would just put them up, hang them. They would put the price and the title below it, and then they would contact me if somebody wanted to buy them. But otherwise, it was kind of just like a gallery of my art in a coffee shop. And that was really cool for me as an emerging photographer and artist. I thought that was that felt like being in an art museum in a way to me. It felt really, really special and really cool. And it felt like I had kind of, okay, I am declaring myself as an artist to the world. And then, I started having some local galleries and, had some small galleries show my work. And of course, when I was in college, I had college galleries and, they were kind of required to show your work. They didn't really discern whether the work was good enough. They just put your work up. But having those actual local galleries look at your work and say, this is good. You're having someone who has other options and is curating your art basically and saying, I like this. I want to showcase this. I think more people need to see it. That physical human connection conversation was a big deal to me. And I think it should be more of a big deal now. It's not quite as easy since the medium has changed. So much content is made for content's sake, but it's also made in video format, and it's really hard to showcase videos. Even as somebody who appreciates video artwork and abstract art, when I go to a museum and I see a video piece in a little room outside of the other visual art, I take a look at the plaque and I say, oh, that's a 25-minute video. A lot of the time, I'm not really prepared to sit down and watch a 25-minute piece of art. So that said, I think having short form artworks like this in video form in museums actually could really work. We'd have to just find the way to showcase it in like a multi-format. It would have to be a headphone situation, obviously, so everything is not overlapping with the other videos. But I think it does have a place in a physical space like that. So perhaps we could look toward having that real community again, that physical space. We all kind of have these virtual spaces in our phones. And I was talking a bit with Chuck about this last week, about how everything is kind of curated to us, and it's all become what we want. We only watch the kind of content we want. We only watch the very specific niche programs and creators that we like. And I think that has become something that separates us more than brings us together. So while there is an online community, and I do appreciate that there is such a wide variety of communities that allows you to showcase your own niche and your own like small interests and become more specific. I think it also takes away from the group community that we have and need. And I think we can get back to that in a way by prioritizing having physical art galleries and going to physical art galleries and comedy shows and meetups. And I think having that one-on-one discussion instead of having these parasocial relationships with people online, I think will become more and more important. And I said this previously, but I think it really fits in with the TikTok ban and the TikTok end right now. The having real community versus digital community is a very different thing. While I do have so many creators and artists that I follow online, and I do try to support them by buying their physical work or going to their recording. If there's a live podcast recording, I love going to those because it's really kind of fun to be in a room with other people who find the same three people who talk on a podcast funny, and you find these like similar people. But I think it's important to step out and do that. Make sure you're finding those other people. Don't just chat with them online. Try to meet these people in person. Try to find people that you have that similar sense of humor or sense of interest in common with, because then you're building a real community, and having physical experiences is so much more valuable, I think. There's a couple of quotes that I was thinking of, and I don't know if it really fits here, but the first one I had in mind was, one beer with six friends is better than six beers with no friends. So if you have a six pack, wouldn't it be better to meet some strangers and say, hey, let's all just have a beer and have a chat? I'd rather have one beer and a good conversation than six beers alone with my thoughts and my phone. So don't know if it really fits there, but my idea is collaboration, community, and conversation are very important. I say this as I'm talking into a microphone to no one. So I realize there's a bit of a hypocrisy there, but I do hope that this reaches someone who wants to have an actual conversation with me and might want to meet up and have conversations on our shared interests. But let's get back to what I was talking about before. I think finding where your art belongs and where it fits has become much more challenging since the time of putting your art in a gallery. Figuring out which platform to share your work on is challenging as well. There were quite a few, there was Flickr, there was, I think it was 1000 pixels or 1000px, whatever it was called, that were photography based and were a photography community where people would go and talk about the work. They would critique other people's work. They would say, I really like how you did this. I like your composition. Have you tried using this? Have you tried this lens? What lens were you using? I would like to repeat this process. The conversations were all there on the forums in these like photography specific websites. And I think going back to something like that, where it's not just, hey, post anything and everything you want, and maybe somebody will find you. Maybe hashtags are useful. Maybe they're not useful at all. Knowing how to get your work to the people that want to see it is becoming ever more challenging, because the platforms that are showcasing our work don't really have an interest in our artwork at all. They only have an interest in getting people's eyes on their platform, getting people to join or subscribe or download to harvest their data, or get them to buy the product that's in their next ad that's below your post. And it's become a little bit of a problem. And I don't really know what the solution is right now, except for trying to be more mindful in how we put our work out there and the discussions we have around it. And I think to do our own part in being on the other side of this is not just creating, but being a consumer. Let's be more mindful about being consumers. Let's put out more ads of our own for people that we like. If you like a small musician, tell people, put it online, just tell people physically. If you like a small bookshop, if you like a small creator, buy their stuff. Tell people, tag them in the posts when you use their product. and just, rinse and repeat that whole thing. And I think that will create this actual physical community and goodwill amongst small creators. And we have this reciprocal feeling where you help me, I help you. We all see each other helping, and then some people on the outside want to come in and be a part of that as well. So I think that's something we can all do as consumers. Just be more mindful. Now, I'm going to pivot here a little bit to a different topic about finding your passion, because I'm already talking about displaying your passions. If you already have your niche, if you already have your medium and your style, that's fantastic. I think it's always good to look outside of your style and say, is there something else? Is there something different that I might want to get into? Is there a way that I can stretch or mold my style into something new? But the idea of finding the passion to do your work when you're out of energy is what I wanted to refer to right now, because there's a feeling where whenever I get on a cruise ship, I have these big ideas. We're going to these amazing places. I'm ready to create. I want to make videos about this place in Japan and this place in Morocco, and I want to showcase what it's like to be on a ship. And I want to, kind of create all the time. But I'm doing my job as well. And while I'm doing my job, it's really just taking it all out of me. And all I want after I'm done doing my job is to take a breath and relax. It's very hard to step into my other job of creating at that point. So how do we find the time and energy to pursue our passions when we are out of energy? Now, I can't say I have the answer to this, because I'm just telling you that I had a hard time doing this when I'm on board. I think the answer is small pieces, and also kind of remind ourselves that it's something we want, to say, this is something I wanted to create, this is something I want to share with people. Do it in a small way. And also for me, the way that I've handled this is by taking the video and then storing the video, not editing it. So right now I have a lot of videos from places in Africa and Japan that I've shot, but I haven't edited and put together yet. And that is its own kind of anxiety that hangs over me, because I think I shot it before, I really need to get into it. So now is the time when I want to start putting those things together. But the idea of shooting, editing, and putting out a video while I'm also doing a 7-day-a-week job on board and trying to enjoy the next place we are and maybe make content about that, it just piles up a bit too fast, and I'm just unable to kind of step back and do that while I'm on board. So, and I'm sure that this is the case for other people too. We all have jobs, and we have families, and we have responsibilities outside of our creating. And I've talked about how much extra effort it takes to not only create, but market yourself and put it on social media and make sure that it's on different platforms. Creating the social media videos for my work takes a good amount of time. Maybe I'll spend an hour between actually editing the video down, making sure the transcript is right, making sure it's posted where it's supposed to be, making the caption. There's care that's put into there, and I think that's important, but it does add more time to it. And do you have that time is the question. And the answer for me many days while I'm working on a ship was no. So what I'm basically saying is do what you can. And if you have other responsibilities, try to make sure that you set aside a bit of time for your passion projects, but don't let it encroach on your, rest time and your sleep. And, don't give up the other important things for this, because then that will start to feel like more of a burden. And I think having your passion remain something that you're actually passionate about is important as well, because it can be very easy to let it get to the point where you think, oh, I'm really kind of struggling to want to do this thing that I know I want to do, because you've made it into a priority or you've made it into a deadline for yourself. So do what works for you, but make sure you're taking the actual time to rest, because that will allow you to regain the interest in your project or your artwork that you might have lost along the way when you've made it into a second job or a third job for many of us. Um, I had another quote here that I wanted to talk about. I mentioned leaning into what you're good at and finding your niche. Don't let critics tell you that you should do it differently. This is something that I think TikTok was really good at, was highlighting people's unique creativity and creative styles. It did start as a certain kind of app, and everybody was kind of mimicking that. But then people said, well, I have all these options, I have all these tools at disposal. Why not use them for making the thing that I have in my head? And quite a few people did a really good job at using the tools that TikTok gave them to create something very unique and one of a kind. And they made themselves into a brand. Basically, they made themselves into something different. And it's often hard to find something different online. You know, you scroll by so many things that are just a carbon copy of what the other thing is, and somebody trying to do what somebody else did, but not quite as well. So I think that's a thumbs up in the TikTok column, that we were able to curate so many people that felt empowered to do what they really wanted to do, and they had a tool to showcase that all of a sudden. And I think that was fantastic for TikTok. My point in finding your niche and being creative and doing your own thing and not trying to mimic somebody else was the quote, if you judge a fish based on how well it can climb a tree, it will always feel like a failure. So don't judge yourself based on how well you can do something that someone else thinks you should do. Judge yourself based on how good you're doing the thing that you want to do. And I think that is an important lesson to learn when you're an up and coming artist, because it can be hard to withstand the criticisms and all of the people that look like they're making success and they're making what you wish you could make. But that's not what you wish you could make. You should look at it from, are you getting the creative idea out of your mind and onto the page or onto the screen the way you want it to? You shouldn't look at it as how many people viewed this. Is this as good as somebody else's? It doesn't look like theirs. Do what you can. Put it out there. You are being creative. And then you should only be judging your work against your other work. Am I getting better? Is this more the vision that I pictured previously? Did I improve the sound quality? Did I improve the lighting? Did I improve my brush strokes? Whatever your medium is, try to make it a little bit better every time. And incrementally, you will look back to who you were and what you were doing last year, and you'll see that big jump of improvement. I can say that's definitely true. When I look back at my old photos, I shake my head a little bit and go, oh, I grit my teeth and think, why would I compose it like that? Oh, there's no lighting. I can't even see this person's eyes in this portrait. The things that I take for granted now that are simple. When I set up a portrait, I make sure there's light on the face. When I compose a landscape, I do it in a certain way. I make sure there's foreground interest. Whatever there is, I try to make sure that those things are there, but I don't really do it consciously as much anymore. It's kind of just, it's a little bit of a second nature, muscle memory at this point. But when I look back at my work 10 years ago, I didn't have that yet. That had to be developed. So by working and working and working and putting the time in and just trying to get a little bit better every day or every time you create, that will all add up cumulatively into something great. And you'll look back at yourself a year ago, 2 years ago, and you'll go, wow, I really did get a lot better. If you look at yourself a week ago, you might not see that improvement. But if you look back farther, I promise you, you will. And if you just keep at that, it will add up to something great. So, and I look forward to seeing all of your progress. I'd love to see your progress images from your start to now. That would be something I'd love to see, people looking at their old work and their new work and talking about how much they're improved. So please show me that if you'd like to share. The final thing I wanted to mention was the discussion around telling people your plans versus kind of keeping it to yourself. I've heard both sides of this argument as well. Don't tell people your plans. Just go out there and do what you're going to do and prove it. Show them once you've completed it. But I've also heard, tell your friends and they will keep you accountable. Like if you're going to run a marathon, sign up for the marathon and tell your friends, and they'll say, they'll check in on you. They'll say, how's your progress going? And having somebody else to be accountable to can be a really good thing, I think. But I also understand the idea of you don't want that pressure. So I'm interested in where everybody else falls on this. I think for me, telling people about it gets me more excited and also gives me people to discuss my work with. I think actually that for me, collaborating with people is important and interesting and one of the things I really strive for. But also being able to have people critique my work and tell me from their perspective what's working, what's not. Do you think this is a good idea? And also maybe you'll get a new idea from them. I think bouncing ideas off of people is the best way to get a new idea, but also to improve the ideas you already have. So many times just having a conversation, I'll get a great idea from somebody else. Just a simple thing they said turns into a seed, and that grows into what becomes the entirety of the project. So share with your friends, let them read what you're writing, let them look at your photos, ask what works for them, ask, does it make sense? If I give somebody a piece of writing and I ask, is this confusing? Did you understand why this was happening? Did it flow well? Did anything seem like it wasn't necessary? If I show them a photo, I'll say, where did your eye go first? What do you focus on? Did you notice that I put this in the foreground? Did this lead your eye to the background image here? Was that little piece of light over here in the corner, or was that number or letter, was that distracting? Do you think I should have cropped that out? I think having those conversations can be really helpful because when you look at or work on something for a long time, you will kind of get this tunnel vision blindness. It's really hard to see your work from an objective perspective because you've seen it from beginning to end and you've seen every little tweak, and you'll be focusing on that little thing that you can't take your eye off of anymore. So by showing it to somebody else, you get a fresh perspective. You get to see how the other people in the world are going to see your work. So share with your friends, show them, ask them, let them critique it, let them get comfortable with telling you things that might be uncomfortable for you. Let them tell you things that you don't want to hear, because that will make you a better artist in the end if you can take that criticism and then apply it to making your work better for everybody else and for yourself. So that's my advice. That's my 2 cents. Take it if you will. I hope some of this helps you. Please, if you are an artist out there and you have some work that you're proud of, send it over to me. Let me see it. And if you are comfortable with sharing some of your early work to show me the transition that you've made from a beginner to where you are now, I'd love to see that as well. So next week, I'm going to be having opera singer Jordana Kostic on the podcast. I'm really excited to talk with her. I hope this has helped you. Again, go subscribe to my Substack. Don't worry, I'm finite.substack.com. And I will put all my links in the description below. I appreciate you being a part of this conversation. Let me know what you're interested in. Let me know what you want to hear more of. And let me know what you're working on. So go out there, be creative, and I'll see you next week. Bye.